Oh, goodness. Sorry about that, gang. We're going to wait for everybody to jump back on. That was good old South Florida losing power again. And so crazy. And so I so apologize for that. I just want to wait a minute before I dive back in. So my computer had to boot up the whole freaking nine. Crazy. We need to uh, fire up the generator thing. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. Do this. Do this. And so awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One sec. So I want to go back to this. Very true. If only that was it, Scott. So I think this is where I got cut off when the power went out. I was just saying that you got to be sensitive to this. You got to recognize that you're you are you're an 8, a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, and your prospect is a 2. And that's the reality. You have to assume that you're better off, for lack of a better phrase, dumbing everything down. Simple is better. It's a weird thing too, that the human brain, you can actually look this up if you want to, if you doubt me, that the brain tends to accept as more believable that which is simple. And so you have to resist the curse of knowledge. You have to make sure that you are sensitive to what you are assuming your audience knows, right? And then dumb it down, lessen it. And so simple is better. Fight that curse of knowledge. Avoid that, that curse of knowledge. And so I already said that when it comes to the hook, right, what I'm constantly thinking about is what's an extraordinary way of presenting the ordinary. If I'm dealing with an ordinary topic, what is an extraordinary way to talk about the ordinary? That is kind of the foundation of, right? So you've got the ordinary, you're talking about the common, right? Don't simply talk about the common, because you're going to trigger that mental opt-out. You're going to trigger that categorical imperative. What's the extraordinary way to talk about the ordinary? And so let's talk a little bit about finding seeds and hooks. Seeds of hooks. So number one, right? You don't sit back and just come up with a great hook, right? The hook isn't in here; it's out there. I think that it was Eugene Schwartz that said that, right? That it's out there. Just like I said to you guys yesterday, that everything that you need to know to write good copy about, like in terms of the strategy, in terms of what's going on underneath the words, phrases, and all that, is out there, is in the research, is in the examination, is from looking at your prospect and looking at competitors and looking at your product. It's all out there. Same thing with ideas. Seeds of ideas are found out there, and then they're developed through you working on them. And so finding seeds of ideas comes from really two things. And this is really the simplest way to think about it. And that is this: it comes from input and it comes from connections. Input meaning the information that you are consuming, right? The reality is that I know people talk about, there are folks out there that say, don't watch TV, don't watch the news, don't read fiction or only read about your topic, read about marketing, this, that. The reality is that the quality of your input is ultimately going to determine the quality of your output. Ideas come from input, come from research, right? Come from reading specific stuff related to the topic, the industry, the niche, consuming information related to the topic, the industry, the niche, but also consuming information not related to the industry, niche, or the topic, consuming general information, and consuming a variety of information. And then from that input and that volume of input and that quality of input, then what we do is we look for connections. And that's really the foundation of all idea generation. Like if you want another book recommendation, and many of you may know this already. I don't know where it is on the shelf, but the only book that you really need, truthfully, to learn for idea generation, and it's the simple, you could read it in one sitting, is forget the name of the book, but it's by James. Exactly. Scott, you son of a gun, stealing my thunder. Exactly. That's the book by James Webb Young, A Technique for Producing Ideas. And so, see, I told you guys, savvy marketers and copywriters and persuaders on here. Scott's a stud. And so A Technique for Producing Ideas, it's the only one that you need, because it demonstrates that the foundation of good hooks and ideas are in seeing connections, in actively looking for connections between two seemingly disconnected things. I always say that two of my smartest friends, the people that the marketers that I think are two of the smartest marketers out there, are Rich Schefren and Jay Abraham. And the one thing that those guys both have in common, and they happen to also be good friends. I met Jay through Rich. One of the things that both of those guys have in common is I think they naturally see connections where others don't. They naturally see connections where others don't. And so they're able to create ideas, new ideas, by seeing connections that others don't. They're able to take something that is out in front of people here and something else that's also out in front of people here. And while most people see them as, disparate, separate, isolated ideas or elements or things, those guys are able to see the connection between the two. And that's where ideas come from. All good ideas are just connections that weren't there before. That's the reality, right? Like the Bible talks about, there's nothing new under the sun. The reality is that we're not creating anything. We're bringing together, right? We don't create, we bring together in a new and different combination. And so that's why I said that hooks, ideas, they're developed, right? Like they're developed. What I mean in this context by developed, not discovered, is that you're not going to discover a great hook, a great theme, a great big marketing idea in its complete form, right? Like you're not going to stumble on something and be like, that's the idea. You're going to stumble on something that is the seed of an idea. And then we're going to work on it. We're going to move it. We're going to look at it from a different angle and to bring in something else. Right. And so we're going to develop it. We're looking for, we're, if anything, we're discovering the seeds of hooks and ideas through our input, through connections, and then we're developing them, right? We're refining them. And so simple, I already said this. It's looking for new or unusual combinations or connections. This comes directly from James Webb Young. And of course, goes back to the input. You need lots of ideas, right? And lots of ideas come from lots of input. It amazes me today. It amazes me how some marketers are how lazy they are. When, years ago, a lot of the legends of copy, legends of direct response, they used to talk about this, by the way, is the absolute greatest energy drink, I think, on the planet. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. I love this thing. 0 calorie, sugar free, and it's not it's like a healthier thing. Anyway, how many of the legends of copy, they would talk about, they would write, dozens of headlines. Some have said, that, they 100 headlines or whatnot, when lots of marketers will sit down and they'll write 3 headlines and they'll choose one of the 3. they'll sit down with a blank pad or an open Google document, and they'll be like, all right, time to come up with a big idea. And they'll, right. And then they sit there and they're like, what's the idea? What's the idea? What's the idea? Right. The reality is that you need lots of ideas to find the seeds of a good idea, a good hook, a good theme. And in order to have lots of ideas, you need lots of input. Remember that you're putting in, and then based on that, you're looking for combinations, and then you're seeing, there it is. There's something right there. How can we refine this? How can we polish it? There it is. And so you need lots of ideas. And lots of ideas come from lots of input, lots of ideas to identify what could be the seed of a good hook. And then you polish it, and you develop it. And you have to be patient with yourself. You can't this idea of, hey, let me sit down and, I'm putting on the calendar in the next 35 minutes, I'm going to come up with a big idea. That ain't happening. It's not happening. I wish it would. It doesn't happen that way. I don't know anybody that it doesn't happen that way. There have been times when it's taken me weeks to come up with a good hook, a good theme, a good idea. And I always tell, I tell Damien, the guy who runs our company on our team, the guy Chris and Teddy and I get to work with, I always say, leave me be, man. You gotta leave me be, leave me alone. Right? It's going to happen when it happens. You know what I mean? It's going to happen when it happens. And so you've got to be patient with yourself, but just understand that it comes from input and connections. And that's why, Scott, I love what Scott said there about the 30 minutes of focused thinking a day. I think, man, I'll tell you what. So many years ago, many moons ago, when Rich Schefren asked me to come in and partner with him in Strategic Profits to run the marketing for him. That's actually, by the way, where I met Teddy. Teddy and I go way back. What was I going to say? One of the things that was most fascinating to me, most interesting to me, was every single day, Rich would take probably an hour and he would just think. He would think on paper by writing in his journal, which is why today he's got this, plethora of journals. But every day, and I was amazed at how every single day he was processing his thoughts. He was kind of marinating. He was massaging. Sometimes he would tape things in there. Sometimes he would sketch things out. But that's how ideas get developed. They don't appear fully formed. It doesn't work that way, but it's all about input and then looking for connections. And this is why this promotion, which came from Stansberry Research, this was actually written by Porter Stansberry. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this promotion. This is one of my all-time favorite promotions. This promotion for me, this put Stansberry Research on the map. Today, Stansberry Research is a behemoth, recently went public. My buddy Fernando Cruz runs one of the kind of divisions, if you will, of Stansberry Research, Legacy Research. I love this promotion because really, forget the lead, forget that it's story based. Porter is obviously an amazing copywriter. Even back then, he was. What was I going to say? And he, Scott, that's somewhere on the wall. It's also a great book. There's a deep book, but that's a great book as well. But getting back to this is what happens, right? It's like squirrel. Oh, the chat's going. Let me look. Over here, what I love about this promotion, and I want you guys to see this, I want you guys to get this, and I want you to understand the power of connection. What this was really all about was the kind of the ordinary idea here, the ordinary concept, the ordinary idea behind this promotion was that fiber optic cable was spreading across the was being laid across the United States. And that was going to open up a tremendous opportunity in the telecommunications industry, right? By the way, Catalyst, right? Catalyst, right? Fiber optic cable being laid across the, cable being laid across the United States, right? Opening up an opportunity to make money with the telecommunications industry. And so, right, that's the ordinary idea. And what Porter was able to see is he was able to see a connection between that and between when the railroad was first built and laid across the United States. When the railroad was laid across the United States, which is what he talks about here, it created tremendous generational wealth. And so in Porter's mind, he saw this fiber optic cable being laid across the United States and the impact that it was going to have on the telecommunications industry, which would open up a tremendous investment opportunity for people. He saw a connection between that and the same thing that happened years ago with the railroad. And so he combined that, right? He brought that connection together, and that became the seed of his idea that there's a new railroad across America and it is making people very rich. And he ties what's happening now to what happened years ago. That's a great example to me of connection, right? That's the lazy marketer. And listen to me, the lazy marketer, the lazy copywriter, what they would have done is they would have just had a promotion that's like how to get wealthy or how to get rich off of the coming telecommunications boom, right? And likely at the time that was done, seen, heard it before, right? Heard it before. And so what's an extraordinary way to talk about the ordinary or the common while everybody else is talking about the telecommunications industry or blah, 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 or whatever, or there's an opportunity here, there's an opportunity here, there's an opportunity here. How do we bring something different? How do we bring a different perspective? Well, Porter saw this connection between that and what happened before and said, it's the same thing, right? You may have missed out on the generational wealth that you could have built, if you got in on the railroad, but you can do it now with telecommunications, the telecommunications industry. What an unbelievable yet simple idea brought together from input and connection. And this put Stansberry on the map. This became their first, home run Grand Slam campaign, and the rest is history. And so another thing that you can do, and you've heard this before, that I often think about with hooks, it's not different from input and connections. It's just one other consideration for you to potentially leverage. And that is what Robert Collier said. And you've heard this said time and time again about jumping into the conversation going on in the mind of the prospect, right? And what this is about is when I sit down and think and spend my time just thinking, like I told you guys yesterday, and we talked about earlier, and Scott reinforced as well. And I know many of you, spend time thinking is I'm also thinking about what is top of mind for the prospect. What is the prospect hearing a lot about right now? What is the prospect already discussing? What's the prospect already thinking about? What's the prospect already curious about? What is starting to trend up in terms of the prospect's radar? Right? Like I'm thinking about that because then that helps me or kind of guides me to where I can begin to look for more, for more seeds of ideas, right? Like if I can input connections from things that are already top of mind for the prospect, if I could take things that are top of mind for the prospect, right? If I could take things that are top of mind for the prospect, and I can find a new and different way to talk about it, a different angle, a different story, a different perspective. That's a great place to begin. One other thing. See this? How many of you can see what this is? Who knows what this is? Ninja Turtle, right? Little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And so not sure which one either. Have no idea. Is this Michelangelo? You guys know more than I do. And so this is really interesting because I have this here as a reminder on the bookshelf over there, which you guys can't see. Welcome to Todd's Toy Hour. That sounds really horrible. Like that sounds borderline illegal. um, I have this here as a reminder because this reminds me of and directly tied to this reminds me of a story that, and I've shared this before. I believe I've shared this with my own team. A story that Mark Ford shared where, where he was on a plane ride many years ago with his family. I believe they were flying home, and sitting next to them just so happened to be one of the co-creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Wildly successful franchise. I don't even know how many decades this thing has been popular. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, still making movies about it, worth who knows what, that franchise. And Mark, being the curious guy that he is, asked the guy, how in the world did you come up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Does anybody know the answer to the question? Does anybody know how the answer that guy gave? And so you guys do know. And so what's the answer? Type it into the Scott. What's the answer? I know Scott could probably be teaching this. Exactly, David, right? That was the answer. Edward, exactly. And he mixed them. He said, well, right. He said, we looked at what was popular, right? And we looked at who we were talking to, and we combined it. So we knew that mutants, ninjas, and turtles, right? And we were talking to teenagers. And so we came up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Like, and so that's an example of, right, like looking out at the marketplace, what's top of mind, where is there already an interest, how can we make connections? This might be a simple, ridiculous thing of like, just, hey, they like mutants, they like ninjas, and they like turtles. Let's just create, mutant Ninja Turtles. And we're talking to teens, and so let's make them teens. But it's a great reminder that it's about connections. And when you can tap into what it is that is already top of mind, the conversation already going on in their head, what they're thinking, what they're discussing, what they're kind of already looking at, what they're already curious about. And then we can take that, and then we can look for connections. Then we can look for an extraordinary way to talk about the ordinary. We are potentially on our way. And so there you go. This in to reinforce what's already been said, spend time on idea generation at least weekly. Like I think at least once a week, to me, even once a week is is wow, that's a long time to go without dedicated thinking to ideas. And so spend time, like figure out, I wouldn't go out of the gate and try to allocate an hour a day of dedicated thinking time, but I would certainly start putting it on your calendar now. The last thing that I want to talk about as it relates to idea generation is really a slide that I added in after the weekly marketing call that I had with my team. And Chris Cole, who was on here, he asked me a question about kind of the excitement that comes through in a lot of my copy in the last promotion, the promotion for this, the copy for this. And he asked me where that comes from. And I would say that the foundation, while there are things that we're going to cover today that are kind of tactics, techniques, word choice, there are ways of, like the words that you use to describe things is certainly going to convey excitement. But it begins with, you have to be excited about the idea, and you have to be wildly excited about the idea. Like if you're not wildly excited about the idea, if you're not like, this is awesome, this is big, this is huge, this is killer, this is interesting, this is like, it's got awesome proof to share. Like this is, when they see this, when I lead them to see this, to get, like, they're going to love it. Like they're going to get it. If you don't feel that way, I wouldn't embrace it. I would keep looking for an idea. It's why I've said before, it's why I love that that one of my clients, the Agora Financial, would allow people to, I think I shared this with you guys yesterday, allow their copywriters to pick and choose the projects that they work on. They didn't force their copywriters to work on specific campaigns. They said, right, you choose the campaigns that you want to work on. You develop your own ideas. If an idea is given to you or brought to you and you don't like it or you're not excited about it, then don't write for it. Let them bring it to somebody else who could be excited about it. So only write for copy, for ideas, for hooks, for themes that you are jacked about. You've got to be jacked about it. Like if you're not jacked, if you're not excited about it, the copy is not going to flow. It's not going to flow, and you're going to have a hard time conveying that passion, conveying that excitement. And so for me, right, when writing the copy for this workshop, my biggest fear was that I didn't convey how monstrous this was. And so I was on edge. Like, it's so important to me to convey the impact that this can have on the audience, right? And that was coming through. And believe me, I've had situations where like there were ideas that I had to, that I agreed to work on for my, our own business. And like I agonized over it. And then I reached a point where I'm like, I'm just not going to do it because it's like I'm agonizing over it because I'm not passionate about the idea. And so yes. So exactly, Lynn. And so before we leave this section, so where do you think you get your best input for ideas from out of the three: books, courses, or expert mentorship? So if you are, for me personally, I'm going to say that I'm going to answer the question, but for me, it's books. For me, it's books. But, for me, the thing, and this is why, as a side note, as a total aside, and so let me get this off, and so that I can look at you, and then we're going to go to the next section and just keep cruising. For me, like, so how many of you use a note-taking app? Like, how many of you use like Roam or Obsidian? Just out of curiosity, for notes. Nobody is. Everybody is just silent. All of a sudden, you guys go silent. Obsidian, Roam, anybody? You write on paper. So I mean for notes, like when you, okay, I got it. Okay. So Evernote. So this is good. So this will be valuable for you. Google Docs. So in general, so let's say you read a book, you're not working on a project. I'm curious, Lynn, right? So all-star copywriter in the house, Lynn Swayze. And so Lynn, I'm just curious, when you are, exactly, Edward. So when you are not working on a project, well, when you're reading, like when you're learning, when you're growing, when you're just expanding your knowledge base. I love it, Lynn, when not working on a project. So funny. Where do you, and you read something in a book, you read stuff, there's some interesting stuff you highlight in the book. Where does that highlight go? Do the highlights just stay in the book and then the book goes on the shelf? And so, I'm curious for the rest of you. Where does that go? So, you saw in the notes in the back and highlight, it's like 100 pages of, okay, Lynn, takeaways. Most of the highlights are lost. iPhone notes app. Hilton Notepad. Oh gosh, you guys are killing me. Notepad. Okay. So I'll tell you, and man, maybe at one point I will, maybe I'll do something with, there's so much great information out there about this, but today in the note-taking world, or the note app world, I would say about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, there was a disruption. There was something new that was brought into the note-taking app, and that is what's called bi-directional linking. So what happens, like bi-directional linking, is where you can, yeah, okay. So let me, hang on. I want to show you something. Yeah, this is going off the rails. Let's see here. I'm going to bring something on my screen in a second. One second, because I want to, got to be careful. I don't show you my juiciest secrets. I'm kidding. Okay. I'm going to show you something that looks horrifying. So you can see this. So this is Roam. I like Roam Research, note-taking app, ugliest app that you can imagine. But this is where all my notes live. So when I learn notes, meaning just when I learn something, not notes to myself about pick up the laundry or whatever, notes like when I read something, when I hear something and I'm like, that's a nugget. I want to store that away. A nugget about emotions, a nugget about copy, a nugget about persuade, a nugget about whatever it is that I'm interested in. And what happens is, thanks to bi-directional linking, you can link back and forth on between notes. And so what ends up happening is that, like any note where I mention big ideas, right, I can find with a click of a mouse all the places that I reference a big idea, all the places that I reference, fear, like fear-based, the fear promo, any place that I'm talking about a lead, I can reference. And so what happens is that this becomes a repository of ideas that the more I add to it, the more valuable it becomes, rather than, let's say, a notebook where, like, let's say let's say you're on 5 notebooks now of notes that you've taken on different ideas, on different ideas, different gems, different insights, different ahas. And now, well, how do you remember what was in notebook 4? How do you remember, like, when you flip to and you're reading something about headlines, how are you now able to go, like, let me see everything that I've talked about with headlines, or let me see the headlines that are fear-based. How do I now go and find and access all of my information about headlines that are fear-based so that I can use it right, so that every time I talk about fear or mention anything about fear-based promotions, I can benefit from the collective. And so I use Roam Research for that. There's Roam Research, there's Obsidian, and more note-taking apps are building in bi-directional linking. And so let me show you just as an example. And this is like, so I want to show you something here. So you see this on here. So if I just said, let's say I said, let's do this and say, ability to slice anything, however you want. It doesn't matter. So let's just say this. Let's say I said, I'm going to do something like this. Todd is an amazing instructor. Sorry, guys, with this mic and all this in front of me, instructor. And I'm going to say exactly, that's what it is. I believe Roam Research. And I am going to say that this is from Lynn Swayze, right? Now you'll notice that this is clickable, right? And so now there's a page for Lynn Swayze. And now look, anytime, if I go back and let's say over here, I want to say, Lynn Swayze told me something about XYZ, right? Let's just say that was in there. Now, if I go to Lynn Swayze, you're going to see all the mentions of like there's a page dedicated to Lynn in here, but everything that I've ever anything that I ever linked to Lynn is going to be in here. And if there were unlinked references, I could see that in here as well. And then if I wanted to, right, I could bring up a view to see what other stuff is connected to Lynn Swayze. Like, it's unbelievable how it works. To, like, the key is when you generate ideas and insights, you need to be able to connect them. That's where the value comes from. The value comes from being able to, like, as you learn more about headlines, how do you not lose the last stuff that you learned about headlines? You read a book 5 months ago on XYZ, and you highlighted stuff, and now those highlights are in a book somewhere, but 5 months ago, now you forgot everything, right? And so what do? Do you then go and grab all the books that you read that you can remember on, that mentioned anything about, headlines or whatnot, and then review them all again? Well, the smart thing to do is to take all of your takeaways, your ahas, and put them into an application like Rome Research. You could do, Ken, you have no idea what you could do with this thing. So number one, what you can do is you can link your Kindle. So let's say you take notes let's say you highlight in Kindle. Well, you can use the app Readwise. So Readwise, not sure what it is, Readwise. Readwise allows you to bring all of your Kindle notes. It'll automatically, without you having to do anything, import all of your Kindle highlights into Readwise. Okay. And if you open a book and you highlight more stuff, it'll automatically, when it syncs, it'll automatically bring that into Readwise. And then you could connect Readwise to Rome Research. So you can automatically have your stuff go right into Rome Research. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. So you can look at this and you can check this out. So let's do books. These are all the books that I have in here that I have full-blown expanded highlights on. So let's click on this. Let's look on this bad boy. And so you can see this, right? And so I've connected this to copy, editing, Gary Halbert. Over here, this was all of my, these are my Kindle book notes, excuse me. This is all my stuff. This was just brought in from Kindle. That's it, right? And so the beauty is that, let's check this out. Like, yeah, this is great. It's just so killer. And you could have stuff in here. Like if I wanted to, let's see, let's do this. Research. Now I just created this link, this bi-directional link to research. Now, if I clicked on this, now I could also do this and open this up over here. You can see that I just created a page for research. So like if we look at this, right? And now anything that mentions research, right, that is linked to research it's amazing. And this, I'm not even doing it. I'm doing it a disservice, to be honest with you, because I'm doing it a disservice because you can filter, you can look at a graph of what's linked to what. And so what it does is it allows you to gain value from your ideas. As you gain insights, as you get ahas, as you stumble across things that you're like, there are courses out there already, Ken, on Rome Research that are just phenomenal. You can go to YouTube and search Rome Research and have at it. It's unbelievable. And I absolutely love it. It's been a game changer for me in terms of content, like being able to find the stuff, learning something, and then being able to use it to create connections, new ideas, completely two different ball games. And so for me, going back to that original, the question, the question of, for me, it's books. Like, I don't, when I go through, if I was going to go through a course on something, I go through courses to learn a skill, to be able to do something different. Right. So like I go through courses to learn a skill so that I can do something different. When it comes to idea generation, hook generation, theme generation, to me, it's a lot of input. And so I'm not looking to go through a full-blown course to help stimulate an idea or a hook for a marketing campaign. I'm reading, I'm consuming news stories, I'm watching videos, I'm using typical input, I read articles, essays, blog posts. I have like an RSS thing right. And I use Instapaper for read later kind of thing. And so for me, it's consuming a lot of information. Remember, you need a lot of input to come up with a lot of ideas to have the seeds or identify the seeds of a big idea. And so, all right, so we are at 5 to 11. I'm going to take our one morning bathroom break. We're going to take our one morning bathroom break and 10 minutes. And then we're going to come back and we are going to hit it ferociously hard until lunchtime at 12:30, and then you're going to go to lunch at 12:30. At 1:30, when we come back, holy moly, you are we're gonna get into nitty-gritty weeds. So before we go to lunch, I'm gonna get us to the point where we are ready to go for the nitty-gritty monster second half of the day. And so with that, we're gonna take a 10-minute break and 10-minute bio stretch break, bathroom break, whatever you got to do, and then we're gonna rock and roll again. All right. Welcome back, gang. And so, okay. So let's pick up and continue to rock and roll. And so let me see here. So I want to make sure that I didn't accidentally skip anything when I jumped around yesterday. No. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go into, and this is perfect because this is the last section that I want to cover before we get into let me see. Nadine, you can send your question over to support@marketingfunnelautomation.com. support@marketingfunnelautomation.com. And they'll get that to me. If you and I are friends on Facebook, you could also just direct message me. If we're not friends, I won't see it. It'll wind up getting lost somewhere. And so support@marketingfunnelautomation.com. And so I want to talk about the marketing argument. And so I want you to pay attention, right? Even though this is the last section of the kind of the foundational, principles before we get into all the cool tactics and tricks and triggers and all that stuff and word choice and whatnot. This is really the heart and soul of the body copy. This is the heart and soul of how I think about crafting even a marketing message in general. And so it's important for you to understand what I mean when I say the marketing argument and kind of the components, the pieces, because you have to understand this and to understand why we say what we say in terms of the copy. So I shared with you guys that this is the kind of the timeline, if you will. I shared with you guys a different version yesterday. This is how I view the timeline of a marketing campaign. I don't care of a promotion. I don't care whether it's a long form sales letter, whether it is, a video sales letter, a webinar, even a multi-part video sequence. This is how I think about these campaigns. Now, this is specific to the front end. So I'm talking about here front end campaigns to turn prospects into buyers. I'm not talking about back end campaigns. And so what we've got is, just to break this down, is you'll see that there are two sections here. This entire timeline I want you to view as your campaign, your copy, your promotion, whatever you want to call it. 75% of it is marketing. Only 25% of it is selling. In this context, as I mentioned yesterday, for me, the selling is really the presentation of the offer. This is really where I'm introducing the opportunity for the prospect to get the offer, to take advantage of the offer. I'm introducing the offer. I'm telling them everything they get with it, what it'll do for them, what they have to give, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So where I am talking about the product is in this last 25%. This 75% is, as I told you guys yesterday, is where everything that I'm doing, saying, showing, presenting, and demonstrating is ultimately there to lead the prospect to that one buying belief. So I told you guys yesterday, I showed you guys how I start off by identifying, after the offer is created, I start off by identifying what is that one buying belief that I need these prospects to have. We covered that yesterday, the campaign thesis, the marketing thesis, right? And the aim of the ultimately the aim of the marketing section of the campaign is to get buy-in on that belief. And so just like I told you guys yesterday, the way that I think about this is I'm a prosecutor and I am presenting an airtight, rock solid, emotional and logical case that leads the jury to one conclusion. Everything that I say, do, show, demonstrate in the body copy, the marketing argument is there for one reason and one reason only. And that is to establish the buying belief, to establish the campaign thesis. I'm not, and this is an important point that I want you to grasp. And this was said yesterday. Somebody said this, I think it was Mike who said this yesterday, that I'm getting buy-in on the what I'm selling, what I'm getting buy-in on is that campaign thesis, is the mechanism, is that right, the best, most effective, fastest, easiest, cheapest, whatever it may be, surefire way for the prospect to experience the result that they want is with this unique mechanism, that this unique mechanism, this method, this process, this framework is superior to every other method, process, framework out there. Okay. And so everything that I do and say and show and present and demonstrate is there to lead them to that one conclusion, just like a prosecutor. Now, a prosecutor also gives what's called their opening statement, their opening, or their opening statement, if you will. And the opening statement for a prosecutor kind of, it teases what they're about to show. It teases what it is that they're about to demonstrate, what it is that they are about to prove. And it gets the jury fired up and it gets the jury engaged. That's the same thing that we're doing in the lead. We talked about the lead, the first 350, 400, 500 words, and how the entire purpose of that, the beginning of your campaign, is to set that emotional hook. And I explained that it is the elevator pitch for your copy, for what it is that you're about to say. It's ultimately the elevator pitch for your unique mechanism, your unique way, your new, different, and superior way of getting them the result that they want, where you're teasing the benefits and payoff to set that emotional hook, right? Now, if we go back one step, and you'll see here, it's big idea. Really, the way to look at this is hook, theme, idea, all serving the same purpose. The purpose of this, and the let me see if I can do this. 1 second. I want to bring something up for you guys. Let's see if I can do this. Yes. And then let's go back to this. Oops. What the heck? This thing is killing me. 1 second. Sorry about that, gang. That is crazy. Didn't mean to do that. Hang on 1 second, guys. You can tell computers are not the strong suit for me. Here. Let me do this. There we go. Okay. Never mind. What I was going to say was the idea, the hook, the theme is there to, you don't want me doing text. This is why I always default to Teddy for all things tech integration, you name it. Cause I'm lucky, right? I'm struggling over here with Keynote, for crying out loud. Just goes to show you. So the idea, the hook, the theme, what is that there to do? That is there to get attention. It's there to stop the prospect long enough to say, wow, this sounds interesting. Wow, this sounds big. Wow, this sounds different. Wow, this sounds compelling. Let me hear more. That's the whole purpose of the idea, the hook, the theme, is to grab their attention. We then, once we've got their attention, we use the lead to translate that attention into engagement. And we do that by hooking the emotions, by speaking to the heart first, right? And so that's the aim. Remember I said, before we can reel in the fish, before we start reeling in the fish, we've got to set the hook. If we don't set the hook and we just start reeling in, they're going to swim away. Same thing with the prospect. This is why you see, like I said yesterday, you see, if you look at VSL analytics, you see typically this huge drop-off point. Now you see a drop-off point on most VSLs, but when you see this, what happens is we got attention, but we didn't set that emotional hook. That's the job of the lead. Remember what I said to you yesterday, that at the end of the lead, all I want to do, all I'm trying to do is to lead the prospect to say, wow, this sounds awesome. Now prove to me that it'll work, and prove to me that it'll work for me. So, wow, this sounds awesome. Emotionally hooked. Like, if this is true, if this is legit, if this is everything that it was said, man, it sounds awesome. It sounds like money. Perfect. This is what I'm looking for. Like, sounds awesome. But now prove to me that it'll work, and prove to me that it'll work for me. Remember, when we go back to the 3 pillars of persuasion, part of one of the 3 pillars, part of that is that logical support. Today, more so than ever before, you need both the emotion and the logical support. You need to lead, the prospect has to want it, and then has to see the logical support to justify the decision, and then they buy. Right. And so that's where the marketing argument comes in. The marketing argument now takes that prospect that is emotionally hooked, and now we reel them in. What does reeling them in mean? Reeling them in means we're reeling them closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to accepting our thesis, to accepting our campaign thesis statement. In other words, we're reeling them in to the buying belief. We're leading them into the buying belief. And so the marketing argument portion, right, is where we are doing, showing, presenting, demonstrating what we need to present, show, do, and demonstrate to get the prospect to believe the thesis. That's it. And I want you to understand why this is so important. It's so important because this becomes your North Star. In other words, oftentimes, you know, like I'll see copy. Sometimes copy gets submitted to me by top 1 clients for review. And there are things in there, and I'm like, what is the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this piece of content in this marketing argument? Why are you sharing this? Right. And they'll say, I'm sharing this because blah, blah, blah. It demonstrates X, Y, Z. And I say, but how does demonstrating X, Y, Z lead the prospect one step closer to accepting your thesis, to that buying belief? Well, it doesn't. Then get rid of it. Right? Then get rid of it. What does the prosecutor do and say and show? Only that which leads the jury one step closer, inch by inch, step by step, brick by brick, to the conclusion that the prosecutor wants the jury to have. That's the same thing we're doing. And so that's the importance of the campaign thesis, is that it becomes that guiding light. It becomes that North Star. It gives you the ability to pick your head up and say, am I moving the prospect closer, inch by inch, to that, to believing what it is that I need them to believe? Because if not, and I'm meandering, get rid of it, right? It forces you to recognize, what do I need the prospect to think, feel, and believe so that they end up at that buying belief? What do I need them to think, feel, and believe so they end up at that one buying belief? And only that which leads them inch by inch, step by step, piece by piece, to that buying belief is included in the copy. And that which doesn't lead them there, that maybe takes them off course, should get cut out, Now, the last thing that I want you to see, and then we're going to go back to the example that I showed you yesterday, just to re-illustrate this point of how this works, is I want you to understand something here. And this is an important point. You see, in this 75%, of what it is that I am saying in a front-end customer acquisition, client acquisition campaign, I don't care what the offer is in the end, whether it's for a strategy session, whether it's for a course, whether it's for a book, whether it's for a training program, whether it's for a conference, I don't care. In the 75%, I am not talking about the product. I'm not pitching a product. I'm not selling the product. I'm not getting buy-in on the product. I'm getting buy-in on the method to deliver the result that the prospect wants, to alleviate the pain that they want alleviated, to give them the feelings that they want to have. In other words, this 75% is getting buy-in on the mechanism, on the method, right? It's getting buy-in on the mechanism, the framework, the system, the approach, the unique mechanism, the thing that is different and superior to every other method, process, system, framework, formula out there. I'm not introducing the product, and I'm not pitching or selling the product until I am presenting the offer in this last 25%. And so that's an important point for you to understand, because remember the thesis. This is why, and I don't know if he is on here again with us today. Michael is on here. So Michael Drummond, our E5 all-star, superstar, wizard, head coach, all of the titles that you can give him. We see this often where people start to talk about, the product. They start to allude to the product. They start to reference the product, right? They'll start to say things like, right. And later I'm going to give you a PDF that tells you all about this or something like that. Or later I'll give you the chance to get a PDF, or inside my video program, I cover how to do X, Y, Z. And they start talking about the product in here. But how does that lead to the campaign thesis? It doesn't. It has nothing to do with the campaign thesis, because the product has nothing to do with the campaign thesis. The one buying belief that we are establishing has nothing to do with the campaign, has nothing to do with the product. It has everything to do with why the mechanism is not only different, but superior at giving the prospect the exact result that they want. Period. Boom. We get buy-in on the mechanism. And like I shared with you yesterday, the reason why this is so powerful when it's done right. And I know I'm getting into both strategy, I'm steering into the realm of strategy here. But it's important for you to understand, because everything that we do and say and show when it comes to the copy, the actual word choice, is to reinforce, is to do this. In other words, right? You have to understand that you have to understand, and let me take a step back for 1 second. You have to understand strategies and tactics, right? There's look, there is let's call it, for example, there is the strategy of let's say social proof, right? To me, right? That's a strategy, demonstrating social proof, right? There are a lot of different tactical ways to present social proof, right? There are a lot of different tactical ways to present social proof. You have to understand the strategic aim or the strategic purpose of a tactic, right? So we don't just use tactics to use tactics. You have to understand what is the role, the aim, the purpose of a tactic, right? Because certain tactics may not be appropriate based on the strategies that we're trying to deploy, that we're trying to use. And so this is why when somebody asked yesterday about, do we use client testimonials in the lead or in the marketing argument, let's just say? Well, the answer is no. That when it comes to a front end campaign, when it comes to this structure, the structure that I follow, the answer is no, because client testimonials are a proof point to back up claims that we're making about the product, right? About the product, but we're not introducing the product until this last 25%. And so what we're doing here, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, proof points, the difference between those two different types of proof points and what comes into play here, right? That in terms of a different type of proof point that I think is a game changer when you get it, which you're going to see it and you are going to get it. And so I'm sharing that because, right, you have to keep that campaign thesis statement in front of you as that guiding star, so that is this leading to that? Right. Well, if I'm adding in something else, how is it leading to that? How is it leading to their acceptance of that campaign, that campaign thesis? It's not. It's starting to talk about something else. Get rid of it. Get it out. And so we're getting buy-in on the value and impact of the mechanism and why ultimately it is superior to everything else, meaning that we're showing the prospect before we ever even introduce the product, before we ever even present the offer, that this method, this system, this framework, this unique mechanism is the best option, is the best choice, is the exact solution that you want, need right now. And then we're going into the offer. So they are, as I said yesterday, they're pre-sold on the offer because they want the mechanism, and they're pre-sold on the offer because the only place that they can get that mechanism is in the offer. It's the offer is the fulfillment of that mechanism. The offer is where they get the mechanism. The offer is what delivers the mechanism through the product, through the service. And so you create an all roads lead to you approach. You create this all roads lead to you because you are the only source of that unique mechanism. You're not selling or marketing a commodity. You're not positioning your service as a commoditized thing that they can get somewhere else. You're positioning it as proprietary. It's only available through you. That's the importance of the unique mechanism. The importance of the unique mechanism, part of it is that it prevents the Google slap, what I call a Google slap trigger, where somebody hears what you're talking about, they press pause on your video, they go over to Google and they do a search. They go over to Amazon and they do a search. They go over to eBay, they do a search. They go over to YouTube and they do a search, and then they find other elements. See, we're never ever presenting your solution as a commodity. We're never allowing or positioning your solution in a way that it's viewed as a commodity or it's commoditized, meaning that, right? Like I see this all the time when what happens is, and this is an important point, and I want you to listen to me. I want you to pay attention to this nuance, okay? That in that campaign thesis, you'll notice that the unique mechanism is one of the three pieces, right? There's the statement of superiority, there's the primary promise, and there is the unique mechanism. If you took the unique mechanism out, right, and you put in something like a commoditized solution or just an ordinary mechanism, meaning we said something like the most effective way to grow any online business, right? So the most effective statement of superiority way to grow any online business, just a weak but primary promise, is with Facebook ads. If that's Facebook ads, which the idea of Facebook ads, that's a commodity because you could go anywhere and learn about Facebook ads. You could go to YouTube and find enough videos on it. You could buy a book on it. You could blog posts on it. You could go to Facebook and learn more about it. I want you to pay attention to this. What happens? We have just shot ourselves in the foot, because what we're doing then when we get into in the lead, we're ultimately going to be talking about get excited because with Facebook ads, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you're going to experience this. You don't have to do LMNOP. You can control everything. You can scale everything, you can track everything, blah, 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 blah. And then we get into the marketing argument and we prove why Facebook ads are the best way to go. Well, somebody says, thanks. That's awesome. You've convinced me that Facebook ads are the way to go, right? And what happens? Pause on the video, Google Facebook ads, YouTube Facebook ads. There's a lot of free information. Let me see if I can learn enough to do it, to use it. And then they go out and they do it and they don't buy your thing. Why? Because you sold them on a commodity, not a proprietary solution. In that instance, if we were talking about the most effective way to build or grow any businesses with Facebook ads, right? All we've done is now create a all roads lead everywhere, right? Meaning like roads go everywhere, because now I have the ability, great, pause, Google, YouTube, right? Blah, blah, Amazon, Facebook ads. And now I've got a plethora of information to consume because you convinced me of the value of a commodity. This is why I used to say years ago, many, many moons ago. So when I was working with chiropractors, and I used to tell them, they would all say, or most of them would say, I go out and I give presentations. I give presentations to people, and I'd say, well, what do you give presentations on? Right? Like, what are you trying to teach them? What are you trying to get them to believe? And they would say, I'm trying to teach them, I want them to believe the value of chiropractic care. And I would say, wrong. You don't want them to buy into the value of chiropractic care. You want them to buy into the value of chiropractic care with you. And that might seem like a nuance, but it's not. It's not a nuance at all. It's not a nuance at all, because, right, I sit in on a what do you call it? A dine and learn or whatever, lunch and learn thing with a chiropractor, tells me about chiropractic. I'm like, wow, I never knew that. That's great. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Wow. Chiropractic. You know what? Chiropractic is the way to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Bob. I think my family, I think my aunt knows somebody who is a chiropractor that will probably hook me up. Awesome. Thank you so much for opening my eyes to the value of chiropractic care. Boom. I'm out. And now I go to somebody else. No. We're never marketing and selling a solution that can be viewed as a commodity. We're selling proprietary solutions. And that's why it's so important that you do that interrogation of the unique mechanism like we talked about yesterday, right? And then what we're doing is we're ultimately, if you really want to like put it in context, we are ultimately then leading folks, we're teaching folks about the value and impact of the mechanism. So we're teaching, or what I would say like is under the guise of teaching. I've referred to it for years now as education-based marketing. It's marketing that is education-based. It's education that is serving a marketing role. What do I mean by education that is serving a marketing role? Well, right, marketing is all about persuasion. It's all about leading people to beliefs, to see things, to understand things, and to feel things that I need them to believe to buy, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm educating folks in the campaign argument on the superiority of the mechanism, on why it works and how it works, right? To produce the result that they want, right? To produce the result that they want. I'm educating. So their sales filter is down because I'm not pitching a product. I'm not talking about how great the product is, which is, right, their sales resistance immediately goes up, right? And so I'm educating. There is no mention of a product until I get to the offer, until I've done my job of getting buy-in on the mechanism, right? And so I'm educating. And so what happens is people are receptive, they're learning, they're having ahas, discoveries. I get it, I see it, right? They're emotionally getting excited because, wow, this is a different way of experiencing the result that I want. I see what makes this better, what makes it easier or faster or simpler or more thorough or safer or cheaper or whatever, right? It weeds out all the unnecessary things. I see it, right? I get it, right? And so now, right, their sales, they're learning. We lead them to this unique mechanism. And now, right, to accept the thesis that the unique mechanism is superior. And now when we segue into the offer, they are freaking grateful. They're grateful for the opportunity to buy. They're grateful for the opportunity to buy because we educated them in a way that they see the mechanism as the right solution for them. And so now all we're doing is we're presenting the offer in a way that, right, like that, in a way we talked about the attractive solution. We talked about the irresistible proposition in a way that makes it a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer and they already want the mechanism. So they're grateful. Right? This is why it's crazy to think that people will thank you for putting together your offer. Like they'll thank you for the opportunity to buy. Why will they thank you for the opportunity to buy? That doesn't come about when you slam them over the head with benefit after benefit after benefit about your product and how great your product is and how great you are and how long your track record is and blah, 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 blah. Right? If that's all you're doing, right, they're not grateful to buy. Right? Because you're pressuring them, you're pushing them to buy. We're leading them to want to buy before we ever even present the offer by getting buy-in on the mechanism. That is what it is that you are looking at right here. That's what it is that I am doing in every campaign with the copy. And so what I want to show you, I want to go back again to this over here, to this bad boy. And I want to show you this one more time, right? And I want to point out what it is that I just showed you. And so, what the heck? There we go. And so you saw yesterday the lead, you saw the introduction of this, the unique mechanism, the claim, right? The promise, different promise. You saw the lead, just teasing, not explaining, not unpacking, not teaching, just teasing, setting the emotional hook, right? Then I introduce myself. Then I give the reason why you should pay attention to me. And by the way, just as a side note, I get this question often about people are like, when it comes to the credibility chunk, right? And there's even a framing of it when it comes to the credibility chunk. How much should I give? People want to give their whole CV. They want to give their whole bio of what you did and all this. The reality is that after you introduce yourself, the reality is that what you want to give is just enough evidence of why they should listen to you. All you're trying to do is answer the question, why should I listen to you? You're not trying to prove what makes you better than everybody else, what makes you more knowledgeable than everybody else, what makes you the superior coach compared to everybody else. You're not trying to do any of that. You don't need to do any of that when it comes to your campaign. What you need to do is you need to answer the question of why should I listen to you? And if you can do that in 2 sentences, then that's all it takes. Don't think that because there's so many other things that I'm a 20-year veteran and I blah, blah, blah. I'm certified in Microsoft and no. Who cares, right? They don't care, right? Today, everybody and their brothers got umpteen different credentials and whatnot. For most people, it's insignificant. What they want to know is who the heck are you to tell me about this? Just tell me enough so that I can be all right, I get it. You know what I mean? All right, I get it. You know what I mean? If I was being told about some medical thing, some nutrient, something, right? And somebody said I'm a nutritionist or whatever. I'm a certified nutritionist, graduated from Harvard, Harvard Medical School, and been in practice for the last 28 years. That's enough for me. I'm this guy. Okay. That's good enough for me. I don't need to know that this guy wrote a pamphlet on vitamin C and blah, 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 blah. I don't need to know all that. We're just answering the question of why should I listen to you? And then we're going into the campaign argument. Now, the thing that I want you to see is, right, that over here, I introduce this mechanism. You can see that, right? It's the same thing. This is the mechanism. That's what I'm talking about over here. And then I start to go into borrowed campaign. It works every time it's used. Why does it work every time it's used? Right. And so you'll notice this, which I'm going to notice this word right here, which I'm going to unpack for you in just a minute. And then it'll do this. It'll do that. It works because of this. Here, credentializing who's using this. So this isn't some weird, crazy tactic that's going to get you banned, right? And so all these people are using it. And here's an example, or more examples, all of this being proof, evidence that this is not some fly-by-night scheme, right? I'm unpacking more about it, right? They didn't write it. They didn't invest any time. They don't have any special deals. All of this is an implied benefit, to the prospect. They're using and they're keeping 100% of the money. Repetition over here, more benefits of this thing, functional benefits of what that means. It's a beautiful marketing opportunity. What's a beautiful marketing opportunity? The borrowed bestseller campaign. What is the borrowed bestseller campaign? It's the mechanism behind this. How did I learn about, right? There are hundreds of bestsellers that you can do this with, right? The opportunity is there, convincing them of the belief, right, that this is a tremendous opportunity that is there right now, that all of these different categories, every topic imaginable, here is evidence, proof of just some of that. Here is my example of using this. I was able to do it. Again, implied benefit, explicit benefit over here. You don't need any special relationship connections, more benefit. Here is my, here's my example. Here's what it did for me, implying that it can do the same for you. And it's not only about customer acquisition. It's also about the back end, the stuff that was sold afterwards, right? And so here's now deeper benefit. You generate sales from new buyers, which you then own and can sell over and over and over. Simply put, summing it up, here's the way that this works, showing that it's easy. It's as simple as 3 steps. Here is showing them all the different ways that they can do this to grow their business, depending on the area that they are in. Fact is, no matter what product or service, right, you can still do this. There's stuff waiting for you right now to do. Here's just some examples of this bad boy. All of this up to this point, like I showed you yesterday, and look at the scroll bar on this page. All the way up to here, 75% had nothing to do with the product. Nothing to do with the product. I wasn't talking about videos. I wasn't talking about cheat sheets. I wasn't talking about price point. I wasn't talking about guarantee. I wasn't talking about accessibility on a mobile app. None of that. None of that. I was talking about the mechanism, and then I went into the offer. So here's what to do now, right? And so now you can get the product. This is it. Here's the offer, and that's it. That's literally it with, some added AOV stuff at the bottom, right? That's it. This is the offer. Other than that, up to this point, from this point, up, or I should really say from the top to this point, this was all about the mechanism. All about getting buy-in on the mechanism, and right, just proof after example, after support, after evidence, piece by piece by piece. Same thing that I do all the time with front end campaigns. And so with that, I want to go now to presenting proof over here. I'd want to answer, let me see. So Edward asked, is the body copy also built with CPB chunks? So it is. So without getting into here, so let me do this. Pull this up. Let's do this. So since Ed brought this up, I might as well go through this very, very quickly. This is shared in depth in, this is kind of a strategic thing, but so CPB chunks are the way that the way that the argument is put together. The way that I want you to think about this is CPB 1, let's do this, plus CPB 2, plus CPB 3, let's just say, plus CPB 4 equals buying belief. Meaning, right? So let's go back to for a second. Let's go back to the what was I going to say? The prosecutor. So yesterday I said to you guys, so the prosecutor knows that he or she wants to lead the jury to the conclusion that the defendant is guilty, right? And should be punished to the full extent of the law. So the prosecutor knows that in order to lead the jury to that belief, the prosecutor needs to establish other sub beliefs along the way, like that the dude was had a motive, right? Like the guy had a motive. Maybe the next thing that the guy had a violent tendency. The next thing that the prosecutor needs the jury to believe is that he was seen at he was at the scene of the crime. Let's just say, and let's just say hypothetically, let's do this. And let's say hypothetically, that is all that the prosecutor needed to do. So in that case, there would be 3 CPB chunks, right? And I'm giving you an ultra fast overview of this, but 3 CPB chunks, right? Each CPB chunk, the way to look at it is each chunk takes care of one belief the prospect needs to lead them to the buying belief. Okay. Each CPB chunk establishes one belief that is necessary to lead the prospect to the buying belief. So in this example, we said that the first belief that we need the prospect, that we need the jury to have, is we need the jury to believe that the defendant had a motive. Right. And so what are we going to do? We are simply going to take that belief that we need the jury to have, and we're going to claim it as true. That's it. We're going to take the belief that we need the jury to have, and we are going to claim it as true. So we're going to say the defendant had a motive. That becomes the claim. Then we're going to offer proof for that. This becomes, so CPB, by the way, CPB stands for claim, proof, benefit. And so, right, the defendant had a motive, right? Let's just say, according to their, their financials, they were in, I don't know, foreclosure on their home, and their cars were being, whatever, repoed. And right, according to, and let's say, I'm just using this as a totally made up example. And here are several emails showing they were ready to take extreme measures to fix their finances. And here's them on the life insurance policy, right? Like that's policy, right? Boom. Okay. Right. Let's just imagine that was enough. So Dean, that's all covered in E5 coaching. And then right? So that's what the prosecutor would do, right? And so the defendant had a motive. Next, what was the next belief? The defendant has a violent tendency, right? What's the proof of that? He's been arrested 6 times in the past 10 months. He's committed blah 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 blah. Right. And we're gonna give evidence of that. Next claim is that the defendant was seen was at the scene of the crime. The defendant was at the scene of the crime, right? Proof. Here's the video from across the street or whatnot. And Bob, the owner, said he saw him. Let's hear from Bob or whatever. He saw him there, right? This is basically the format that a prosecutor would use, right? Like the defendant had a motive. Here's the proof. According to their financials, boom, boom. The defendant had a violent history. He's been arrested 6 times in the past 10 months. He's committed these crimes. The defendant was at the scene of the crime. Here's the video from across the street. And Bob, the owner, said, right, blah, 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 I saw him there. That's the format. We use the same format, except we add one other element, and that is the benefit. So for example, we might want the prospect to believe that claim this works in a matter of, let me keep this real simple. This is here. Anybody can do this. It's super simple. What is the proof of that? The proof of that, it only requires three clicks of the mouse and works on any computer, right? So the benefit for you, you, regardless of your experience, you can do this and be seeing savings in a matter of days, something like that, right? This is an example of a CPB chunk. So all we're doing, so to go back to Edward, all we are doing is we are taking the things that they need to believe the buying belief, right? To lead them to the buying belief, right? You lead prospects to the buying belief, right? Through these sub-beliefs. And you create these sub-beliefs in their mind by claiming them to be true, offering proof, support, evidence, and then giving them the takeaway, the benefit of that. Anybody can do this. It's super simple. It only requires 3 clicks of the mouse, works on any computer. So regardless of your experience, you can do this and be seeing savings in a matter of days. See how simple that is in terms of a chunk? That's the makeup of the marketing argument. It literally becomes this. It becomes, right? It's almost like this. It's hook, right? To get attention, right? Lead to create engagement, set the emotional hook, right? Why you should listen to me. And this is quick. That's it. And then we go into, right, call it marketing argument that is made up of, let's do this and say it's this. And then it is, segue into offer, and then it becomes this. That's the strategic overview. So to answer that question, there's the answer to that question for you, Ed. And so let's now go back to this. And so I want to talk a little bit about presenting proof. You saw in that, right? You saw in the borrowed bestseller copy that there was proof upon proof upon proof upon proof. I'll tell you that, right? No proof, no marketing campaign. No proof, you simply have a bunch of claims, right? Like, and the reality is that right, is that anybody today can make claims. Anybody can claim anything to be true about anything. What turns it from a bunch of claims where you're simply just expecting prospects to believe you. See, that's the thing that I want you to understand, that what a lot of marketers do is they simply expect their prospects to believe them because they said it. But the reality is the healthiest perspective for you to take is that your prospects will not believe you unless you offer evidence, support, right? They're going to say what they're going to say. You've heard this, right? Like those of you that have studied copy, you've heard like, yeah, right. Sure. How do I know that that's true? Just because you're saying it doesn't mean it's true. People say a lot of outlandish things online. And we see that every day, right? There are people on here right now that have said outlandish things. And so, the reality is that what turns it from a string of claims into an argument is the proof. It's the proof, right? The claim, right? Anybody can make. Right? Anybody can make a string of claims. This is great. This is fantastic. This works easy. This is super. This is great. That's what the typical marketer does. That's why it feels like marketing. It feels like a sales pitch, and it feels like, puffery. Like, how do I know? You're just making a bunch of claims. It sounds great, but how do I know that that's true? Where's the logical support? Where is the logical support? Right. And so the point is, right, that adding in the proof, the evidence, the support, I'm going to show you the simplest way to do this. Is where it becomes an argument. Now, when you add in the benefit, the takeaway for the prospect, then it becomes a marketing argument. So when you have a claim and then the proof and then the benefit to the prospect, what that means for you is, so what you can do is, so you'll enjoy, so you'll see, so you'll experience, so you'll get, now it becomes a marketing argument. And when done right, it leads the prospect to the buying belief, which perfectly sets up the sale. And so you need proof. And so you must give support. You must give proof. You must give evidence to back up whatever you claim. Do not go into your marketing campaigns assuming that your market will believe you simply because you say it. That's what the novice does. That's what the lazy does, right? And yeah, you will get some people, you will get some people to just take your word for it, to take a leap of faith. But if you want to put up big numbers, serious numbers, you want to reinforce that emotional desire with the logical support, with the evidence, right? With the evidence, right? With the evidence. And so, and that's also what turns it from a bunch of claims into an argument, what turns it from a bunch of claims, a pitch, if you will, into an educational presentation, because you're giving them the evidence, you're giving them the logical ahas. You're not just claiming it's great, claiming it's easy, claiming it's fast, claiming it's simple, claiming it works, claiming it's superior. Anybody can say mine is the best, right? The question becomes why? What makes it the best? How does it work that makes it more effective? How does it work that makes it quicker? Why does it put up quicker results than anything else? Convince me of that, right? While you'll get some people that will buy when you don't offer that, if you want the masses to buy, you need that support. And so you have to give support, evidence, proof for whatever it is that you claim. Don't claim what you can't prove. Don't claim what you cannot prove. Right? If you can't prove why it works quickly, don't claim it. Don't claim it, because what I want you to understand, you are better off, and listen to me, in your copy, you are better off taking out unsubstantiated claims, even though they're exciting, right? Like they're exciting, they're benefit driven, they're blah, blah, blah. You're better off taking out unsubstantiated claims than you are leaving them in there unsubstantiated, because those unsubstantiated claims, the more that you make, they stack together to create this big feel of disbelief, right? Of like you're stretching it, like you're asking me, right? It's almost like you make an unsubstantiated claim. I take a step back, right? Like, or really, I should say a step closer to the cliff. Like, all right, so I'm going to have to take his word on this. This is her word on this. This is a bit of a leap of faith. You make another unsubstantiated claim. Well, now there's more of a leap of faith. You make another unsubstantiated claim. Now there's more of a leap of faith. And eventually, when you have all of these unsubstantiated claims, now it becomes, my decision is based on a gigantic leap of faith. And so you are better off taking out those unsubstantiated claims, right? Like, don't make it. Don't claim what you can't prove. And no claim should be bigger than your biggest proof point. In other words, like in practicality, right? In practical terms, if you are, let's say you have evident, let's say hypothetically, you have an example, a case study of how this technique was used and it produced results in 3 days. Right. And right. Most people get results in 7 days, some 5 days, some 8 days, some 10 days. And you've got an example of somebody that used this and got results in 3 days. Well, don't claim that you can see results in 24 hours because you have no way to prove that. Your biggest proof point in that small example is of 3 days. Therefore, your biggest claim should be no more than or less than 3 days, right? So your no claim should be bigger than your biggest proof.